Yeah, so welcome. Morning, Faisal. It's great to see you again. We haven't seen each other for some months, so this is you're the first person to be interviewed. So it'd be really great for you to share. I mean, let's just kick it off, right? For you to share.
All right. Thank you. Thank you very much for the honor and privilege to be here. Thank you.
Great. So please, I mean, tell everybody, a bit about yourself, a bit some color, what you're into these days, and just give the audience a bit of flavor for Feisal, who you are.
Okay. So just I'm third generation family business member. I'm born in the Congo. I'm raised in Belgium. I finished my schooling in Canada. Went to university in the U.S. Worked in New York a couple of years and moved to Hong Kong in 1992. So our generation decided not to succeed in the existing family business. So we were looking for frontier markets. So when the Berlin Wall fell, we saw Eastern Europe as an opportunity. And in 1991, entered Eastern Europe, starting with Hungary, built our own brand of clothing initially, and then eventually became the largest licensee to Disney, Warner Brothers, Cartoon Network, and the football teams. So that was from 1991 onwards. And so I moved to Hong Kong in 92 to set up the buying office for this operation. And I decided to also trade in sub-Saharan Africa, so the equator and down. So that's what I was doing initially. And then, life happened, right? So different events in my life happened, and obviously things took a different turn. So I don't know if you want to get into that yet, or
yeah. I mean, please share. I mean, that's you obviously I've known you. We've met a couple of times, so your life took a dramatic turn, and please do share with the audience, what changed for you a number of years ago.
So basically three major experiences in my life occurred, not in sequence, but obviously one after the other. The first was the Asian financial crisis. We, as the third generation, went to ground zero during that financial crisis. So all our retained earnings were wiped out. I imagine at 25 is when, we started at 23. And by 25, we were making what we called serious money, which was seven figures, right? And by 1998, all of that was wiped out, okay? And interestingly enough, I had just gotten married, right? So I'd gotten married, and 6 months later, we were in ground zero, right? But it was a time where we believed, we were young.
Right. And that's very humbling, right? So when you're going from making, we're on top of the world, and now basically, let's say close to bankrupt, or at least very, your savings wiped out, your earnings wiped out, a very humbling experience, right?
Yeah, so that was the first experience where, again, when you're young, at that time I was 29, you're young, you believe, that you can conquer the world, everything's going to be okay, everything's going to work itself out. So 99 was a year of reflection, and then we decided to enter a lot of the countries we were operating in, but not on the ground. So we went into war-torn Africa and decided to basically have the two worlds meet. So we said, let's operate in the third world as the first world. And the mission was to bring to the third world what the first world took for granted. So we represented the likes of Procter & Gamble, Gillette, Reckitt Benckiser, Wrigley's, Mars. We became the largest players in generic pharma. We brought anti-HIV drugs. At that time, AIDS was a big issue. We represented Haier, the white goods manufacturer, and we were in commodities. So from 2000 to 2004, we entered Angola, Congo, Sudan, Burundi. So you can imagine these were all CNN top story countries, which were going through their own civil war, post-civil war experience.
Right. Okay.
So when you talk about,
So sorry, before we move on to this, and then before we continue, you mentioned 1999 was a year of reflection. Do you mind just elaborating what that meant for you? What kind of reflection?
I mean, look, at the end of the day, I can, I was very young, right? I mean, I was 30 years old, and so it was really a time where we were just very confident because we were young. We believed that time was on our side, right? Okay. And that We had made mistakes. We had taken some unnecessary risks. Some of our systems weren't strong. So as a result, it crumbled. And of course, you know, we were based in Hong Kong, right? That's not an excuse. Right. So just we had a realization that no matter the amount of wealth we had, right, it could get wiped out tomorrow.
Right.
Right. So really realizing that it's ourselves we need to invest in and not the external. So the first realization is you can take everything from me, but you can't take me.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that was what was the lesson, sure. Right? That we had all our retained earnings gone. The operations were still there, but there was no cushion.
Yes.
Right. And obviously then you're scared, right? Because you have to start again. Right. So I would say the more reflection was that, you know, you can get wiped out overnight, but you yourself are still there.
Right.
And that's what the core strength is, right? Just, you know, which people will realize during this crisis.
Yeah.
Right. That a lot of things will disappear. What was will no longer be, right? Even you will change and morph into a new, you know, version of you, right? For the better in terms of the new system, the new structure, the new existence as a family unit, as a company, as a society, as a community, as a global citizen, right? But that's
individual, yeah.
You know, so we had that in a very mini form, right? Because it was Asian financial crisis, not a global financial crisis. This is a different ballgame.
Okay, so then just fast forward. So you spread it. You know, you opening up in many countries across Africa, and then
so we set up 7 countries in Africa. We expanded in Eastern Europe to 5 countries. You know, so Hungary, Czech, Poland, Romania, the region, and so by 2004, you know, that was when I thought I was on top of my game. Right, we were running businesses in the hundreds of millions. We had 10,000 employees. It was my cousin, my brother, and myself, 3 of us, okay, living in different parts, right? Not all living in one place. And I thought, this is incredible. And then as I walked out of the doctor's office, he said, whatever God you believe in, please pray. And I looked at my spouse and I said, did he just ask us to pray? And she said, yes. So I knew that tomorrow was going to be a very challenging day. So the next morning I had a PET CT. And in the afternoon, you know, this is Hong Kong, so it operates very quickly. Yeah. In the afternoon, I was told I had stage 3 cancer.
Wow.
Now, that was the last thing that a 35-year-old expected to happen. And so all of that business, all of that power, all of that position, all of a sudden, what was important were 4 things. Access to the best medical care, the ability to pay for that medical care, whether it's insurance or personal pocket, the support system around you, which is family, friends, whatever you consider support,
right,
and the last, a purpose to live. And lucky for me, I had all 4.
Right. Fantastic. And then, you know, this is obviously very different. Money you can always make up again, but once your health goes, that's it, right? So clearly a life-changing event for you. And what was going through your mind at the time?
So the reality was that, you know, lucky for me, we had already prepared not for this. I didn't expect it to happen at 35, but we already prepared for the inevitable, which is death. So I had a foundation set up already at the age of 27. Okay. So we were ready paperwork wise. So I didn't have to sign anything. I just had to speak to my lawyer in Switzerland, inform him of the situation. He spoke to my spouse and informed her that the house was in order and there was nothing she had to worry about. He would take care of everything.
Right.
The second thing I did was basically do a handover in the hospital room. And that took less than 5 minutes. So I, reaffirmed to my team that I travel 6 months of the year. I don't run the company day to day. The 1 year is done. The 5 years done. You know the drill. I'm no longer active CEO. Anything you say to me is at the risk of being fired. And that was it.
So you took, there's a lot of practical steps. You were very good at that. You know, how about from a mindset perspective?
Well, look, I mean, obviously, you first ask yourself what happened, right? So first was, how do I survive, right? That was the first question. What do I need to do to survive? So first was the medical side. So I sat with the docs, and he said, we're going to do 1 round of chemo every three weeks. And then I asked him, obviously, the probability of survival. And my actual response was, I'm better off going to Macau to the casino.
Mm.
And he said to me, he said, look, I'm just the messenger. I'm not the one who created this.
Right.
So lucky for me, his classmate had found a cure for the cancer I had. So I said, okay, please reach out to your classmate, inform him that you have a 35-year-old that's willing to do everything in his capacity short of getting killed.
Right.
So he reminded me that this was chemo, not candy. And lucky for me, he came back the next day and he said, the guru has answered. And these are MD Anderson grads. So these are not, Joe Mo we're talking about. And came back and he said, basically, instead of having 1 round of chemo every 3 weeks, we're going to give you 5 rounds of chemo in a row every 3 weeks. And that's what occurred. And the reason why I accepted that was what I informed the doctor was, I need to be able to look my 2 little boys in their eyes and say, Baba did his best.
Yeah.
Then only will I die in peace. Now, the fourth element I said was purpose, was my 2 boys. They were 1 and 3.
Wow, very young.
Okay, so that puts things in perspective.
Right.
So letting go of the business, but having the gratitude to have the financial capacity to be able to afford this access, and having gratitude for having created a structure that allowed me to step out. Remember, the step out was 11 months.
Yeah.
It was not one day. And I did this day 2 in the hospital room. So it wasn't because day 3, I started chemo.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like I waited a month or I waited 2 months and I had all these meetings. And no, because they told me it's either 100% you give to what is going on or it's game over.
Right. So just basically made the decision and took action right away. Right.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
And when you say mental, of course, I mean, look, it was brutal, right?
Yeah.
It was brutal. When you have 5 rounds of chemo in a row for 3 hours a day, there's days where you can only drink a capful of water. You're not able to eat anything. There's a lot of pain because, I didn't have a portal. So obviously the veins kept collapsing. What you do is you lose control.
Sure.
So it was the perfect disease for my personality, right? So somebody who's type A, everything is in control, everything operates in perfection.
Yeah.
This was a disease where you plan whatever you want, but I wish you all the best.
Yes.
Because you don't know when your head's going to hurt. You don't know when your back's going to hurt. You don't know when you're going to feel nauseous. You don't know what you're going to feel like eating. You don't know anything.
So
it's really
putting in perspective what you have control over and what you don't have control over.
Yes.
Right. Yeah.
Right. And the reality is, to fast forward, is you think about it. You breathe in and you breathe out.
Uh-huh.
Do you actually have control of the capacity to breathe in again?
So in the subconscious, right? Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So what do you really control? And the first book I received was from a friend of mine in Dubai, was actually called The Power of Losing Control.
Huh. Fantastic.
That was the first book I received in the hospital room.
Wow.
Right.
Wow.
And if you read that book, you realize you don't control anything. Right. I tell you, if I go forward, today I do a lot of speaking. And what I remind people is that you control 2 things in life: the meaning you give to whatever happens and your response.
Right. Right.
Those are the 2 things you control. The meaning you give, just like now, the corona. What is the meaning you give to this? Right? And your response, right? The meaning you give that we are now in isolation. We are now homebound. We are now together as a family. We are now having meals that we get to enjoy that we never could, right? How many of us were able to have breakfast, lunch, dinner, or even lunch and dinner with our families on a day-to-day basis?
Right.
How many of us have spent this much time with our parents since we left home?
Exactly.
Right? But with that comes challenges as well.
Yeah.
Okay,
And
it's not all.
that is so important these days because our minds are being hijacked so easily by what's going on social media, right? So if you, whether it's fake news, real news, whatever, you know, if it's news from the other side of the world and you're reacting and you're giving meaning to everything that's coming in your social media feed, you will drive yourself, well, insane, but certainly, you know, increase your anxiety levels for something that has no impact on you directly. So it's absolutely important, as you said, to try prevent your mind from being hijacked and giving meaning to things that have an insignificant impact in your daily life. You know, so important. Yeah.
So the difference between awareness and allowing it to intrude into your space or invade your space or impact your space is very different.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So that's, you know, so it's what you have 10,000 bits of data, right? What bits of data of that 10,000 are actually going to help you move the needle? You
Right.
need to be able to discern that.
Right.
And the thing is, most of us, unfortunately, have not had to discern 10,000 bits of data before.
Yeah.
Right. So it's overwhelmed. Right. And those who have.
Yeah, and that's where mindfulness comes in as well, right? Being mindful in the moment of how you're showing up and how you responding.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is that unfortunately there's preparation, right? So a lot of us, some of us did the work in advance, some of us didn't, right? So as these things unfold, you will start to see that the preparation that everybody talked about, that some people felt was, you know, foo-foo or out there, you know, is now playing out.
Yeah.
Right. So the whole idea of building resilience, right? I mean, today, you know, I mean, we'll talk about it maybe later, of the business I run, is to build resilience physically, mentally, emotionally, and relationally, to prepare for the inevitable, which is change.
Right.
To prepare for the unexpected.
Right.
And as you build resilience in those four areas, you can look at them, visualize them as cups, 4 different cups, right? Now, of course, cup is limiting. So a lot of the people in my space say don't use that word, but at least you can visualize. So if my cup is full, and as an event happens, I either fill or spill. But if it's full, I spill a little, it's okay. It's still full. But if it's empty and I spill, there's an issue. For the financials out there, it's like, I have $100 million, I lose a buck or two, it's okay.
Yeah.
But if I have $5 million and I lose a buck or two, it's slightly different.
Right. And
right?
For a lot of the individuals in the group, I mean, that's looking at your, let's say your bucket, right? Your cup, your internal cup. If your teams, your spouse, your colleagues, you know, your friends are looking to you for support and your bucket is empty, you know, you're not going to be present, you're not going to be there to provide that support if you don't have your bucket full.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. So that's, you know, that's the core at 30,000 feet, right?
Yeah.
So that was the second event, right? So you know, that, like you said, what was the meaning? Yes, of course, you did go through a period of what happened, right? You can say, why me? But really about, you know, I'm type A, we're very practical. We've built over 24 companies, you know, and in very, very challenging spaces. And so, you know, spent 11 months, had 20 rounds of chemo, had 3 surgeries, went through grueling experience physically, right? But what was interesting was that I very quickly realized that this saved my life because I was out of control.
Right.
Okay. I was building things way beyond, right? Probably my physical, mental, emotional capacity, right? And so instead of dropping of a heart attack, I was given the luxury, which I know will sound ridiculous for most, of having cancer where you have time. You have time to say sorry. You have time to say thank you. You have time for gratitude. You have time to reflect. You have time to introspect, right? And that's the luxury. Yes, it's painful. Yes, it's grueling, but you have time, right? And I'm not saying everybody. Obviously, if you have, you know, pancreatic cancer, it's a different experience, right?
Sure.
In my case, So I spent that 11 months and came back. I sold most of the companies, and I started to help family members who started to get sick, right? And we are, Gujarati, we have extended family in the hundreds, and it was access to the best medical care, access to the protocols, understanding what they had. It started with cancer, right? And then it went to every disease, right? Orthopedic, heart issues, et cetera. And I spent a lot of time in hospital rooms, clinics, and it felt incredible, which was quite strange, right? Here I am watching somebody suffer, and I'm in a space that's not exactly very joyous,
right?
But it felt really good inside, right? And go ahead.
So moving on, you said there's a third event in your life that was another life-changing moment.
Yeah. So the third event was that when I was in hospital, I used to read a lot of books, and I used to hear of people getting divorced post-cancer, during cancer, etc. And I thought to myself, how is that possible? You've just had the most intense experience together, right? In a relationship where there's the support system is, I would have not made it. Let's be very clear. I would not be here today if it wasn't for my spouse. Right. The support, the care, the love that was provided was just, I mean, I cannot be more grateful, right? And I cannot express the words needed to thank.
Right.
But what happened was, you fast forward many years later, and it was actually 2 weeks after I built the team for Genetic Care, which is the family health office that I run. I had the third experience, and the third experience began with, being told, I'm sorry, I don't love you anymore. I can't do this.
Wow.
And that experience was very different. So in the cancer, I was able to accept, I was able to understand, and I looked at it as a gift. In this third instance, right, I was not able to follow the 4 steps of the book I've just written, right, which are the 4 steps, which are to embrace what is, rather than resist, rather than question, to trust life or the universe or God or whatever you believe in, rather than question it and wonder. Third is to remain calm, right? And the fourth is to have clarity of mind. In order to be in a state of flow where head and heart unite, and you stay in the state of flow. So in the second incident, I was able to follow the 4 steps. In the third, I was not. I was completely out of my league. Right. My standing heart rate went to 9,500. It remained there for 4 months. Okay, I ended up eventually having kidney stones, right? Now, to handle these, obviously, I did a silent retreat. I spent 7 days in silence and meditation to bring what we call the parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous system balance, to get that heart rate back to normal, okay? And that experience was the third experience that completely threw me off. And that was where really, it was 3 years of limbo.
Right.
And obviously, again, it was the meaning, right? So the meaning I gave to the third event was, I failed my children to provide them the basic necessity of a nuclear family, right? And until I changed that meaning, I was in limbo and I was suffering. Remember, pain is inevitable. Suffering is a choice. You suffer when you resist what is. So even today with Corona, right? If you embrace what is, and there's a difference between accepting and embracing. You can accept. That doesn't mean you're happy, right? I'm not saying to be happy about Corona, right? But accepting it and embracing it are 2 different things. Right? Trusting versus questioning. Remaining calm, as you mentioned about calm versus anxious, right? And then having clarity rather than fogginess. So in the third instant, it was a different experience. And then when I changed that meaning, everything changed.
Right. So when did you actually, so I've got a copy of your book here. So when did you actually, when did you write this book? At what stage?
No, so this was obviously we were separated for 3 years. I was divorced. And then the kids were in boarding school. So I mean that the book was published 15 months ago.
Oh, okay. Okay. So fairly
Yeah,
recent. So
and
it's
I
really
wrote it a year. I wrote it a year before that. Yeah, yeah.
old.
So it's yeah. I mean the separation began January of 2013. The divorce happened in 16, and you know, and then I wrote the book. Now we're 20, so end of 18. So end of 17 is when I wrote the book.
Right. So maybe I know you just mentioned a little bit. I mean, this fascinates me as well. As we mentioned earlier, discussed earlier, that I follow and have read a lot of books of Dr. Joe Dispenza, and he shows the science behind spirituality or meditation and breath work, and it's just fascinating for those people who are a lot more analytical or practical or want to see, like I said, the numbers or the data behind things like meditation. And he shows, the alignment of the mind and the heart in spirituality or in meditation, and just the power that it provides, right? And you mentioned, your 4 steps, your 4 steps of flow, and not being in your mind all the time, not being in the heart all the time, but the alignment. So maybe just walk us through that in a bit more detail. And just share with the audience about the book and the practicality of those 4 steps.
Okay, I mean, I think let's step back to give some perspective
Sure.
to the, I know you've created this incredible network, right? And there's, I assume, a lot of, go-getters, right, in this network. I've seen the list. These are doers. These are not, we call it, right? They used to call me a human doing versus a human being, right? Yeah. So many of us supposedly are human doings, okay, which I don't agree with anymore. There's a chapter in the book about that also. So if I ask the audience who are part of this network the following 3 questions: how would you like to have consistent energy throughout the day? The answer would be yes. How would you like to be present and engaged throughout the day? The answer would be yes. And how would you like to be calm, centered, and non-reactive throughout the day? The answer is yes. Right? So now the question is, we've spent a lot of our time on the first element, right? Which is the energy element, right? Quote unquote, we have, okay? With the food and with the workout and all of those things, right? But when it comes to presence, engagement, and calmness, centeredness, this is here and here, right? The physical, yes, the cortisol is crushed as you work out. The food you eat obviously impacts all of us, because if you don't have consistent energy, there's no chance. That's the foundation, right? If I have energy, I can then have the opportunity to be present and engaged. Right. So what Joe talks about, right, and what we are, what we are doing, what we call in the second pillar, which is beyond medical, is looking at, how do I eat and drink? How do I move? How do I sleep? How do I think? And how do I feel? And within that, the third pillar is my relationship with myself, my loved ones, my extended family, and my community, right? So the idea is, when you go to the 4 steps, right, is that when things occur, right, again, what is the meaning? What is my response? Right? And I know I just disconnected a bit, but I'm just I'll bring it back together. Sure. So the reason the book was written was that when you listen to other people talk about flow, it's very sporadic, and it's very much what athletes called in the zone. So right. The idea was to make it more tangible, and to make it more accessible, and to make it an opportunity to have it continuous and in a much longer space, not just when I'm working out, or when I'm having sex, or when I'm, quote unquote, meditating, or whatever that state is how can I be in a state of flow in the moment, in a continuous state. Now, I'm not saying, 24/7, 365. It's it's not what I'm saying is what we, of course, we can name for it, right? On the condition, again, we're not attached to the outcome. Right. So the 4 steps is really, am I able to embrace what is, right? Now, I will only embrace what is based on the meaning I give to what's occurring. Right. So today, Corona, right? I'm in an apartment. I assume you're in an apartment too in Hong Kong. Space is limited. We're not sitting in the Midwest in Africa, I mean, in US, or in a huge villa in the middle of, wherever, right? So space is constrained. So what is the meaning that I give to what has just occurred? So I have a desk now. This is the bedroom. And I actually have a desk, one of my son's desks, in the bedroom. I never mix the two energies, but for the first time I have it. So again, it's the meaning I give. If I resist and say, oh, this is not right, this is not the way it should be, it's temporary. Right? It is what it is. At this moment in time, this is what works. Right? This is what's needed because I've given the living and dining room to my parents, right? Because my father now is using the dining table, which is what I normally use, as his office because he's in the markets. And the TV is his screen, CNBC, Bloomberg, while he speaks to his bankers, right?
So
my son.
Sorry. So it's really about, like you said, is what it is. It's being in the moment, not giving your power away to external factors, just being absolutely present, right? So I'm just conscious of time.
Okay, sorry.
So steps 2 through 4.
Yeah. So the second, obviously, is to trust, right? That what is the gift, right? What is the gift? What is the opportunity here? Like I mentioned earlier, we have the opportunity and the gift of having meals together. Remember, the family, if you look at the studies done by Harvard, right? The family that eats together stays together. Right? When in reality, it's the family that chooses together. What does that mean? It's conversation. Right? It's sharing, right? And it's digesting that conversation is what matters. So communication, connection, asking people, how are you feeling? Right? Not how are you doing? How are you feeling? Right?
And so that's so important now, right? Especially, I mean, you've seen a study of blue zones around the world, and that's why people live, well over 100 in those areas because of that community, right? Because of the communication, spending time together. Now, with this virus, it's almost, well, on one hand, it's breaking communities, let's say in the workplace, but it's also bringing families closer together, or at least we hope, so. Again, as you said, it's different ways of how you interpret or how you see the situation, right?
Yeah. So I mean, we have to look at what is the positive side, but again, with that comes challenges. Right. So with that means that you're spending a lot of time together. You're getting to see what you never saw. Right. So when I was in Dubai with my parents, I was home most of the time, so I saw how the house was run and how it was micromanaged, which to me was shocking, right? So it's really an opportunity to step back and say, do I unconditionally love my family? Which means that I don't have expectations, I don't have impositions, and I don't judge. So there's also testing, right? So we're going to be doing webinars on relationship and communication to the various families, because with the gift of that time together comes with the challenges.
Sure.
Because now you're going to get to see under the kimono.
Absolutely.
Right? Of how the house is run, or how things are being managed, and at the same time how you're handling yourself in this space. Because remember, to separate work and home is also a challenge for most people because they've never worked from home. Right. Managing teams remotely is also a challenge, which again, most people have not done.
Right.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, and leading with empathy as well, right? Because it's always been about delivery, or a lot of time delivering the quality results, but now completely different environment, because a lot of companies budgets pretty much have gone out the window due to the environment, and now it's really just about a leadership, being present for your staff, right? Just quickly, steps 3 and 4, and I do want to, for you to share a bit more about KiniCare and why you set it up.
Yeah. So step 3 is basically, having so one is embracing, second is trusting, third is calmness, right? So being able to be calm, centered, non-reactive, right? Which obviously the best tool is through meditation.
Right.
Now, obviously, a lot of the alpha A's may resist it, but unfortunately, the reality is that's the the fastest tool, right? And the best tool today. And the last step, obviously, is clarity. From that state of embracing, trusting, and being calm, you have clarity of mind, which allows you to really operate from a unity of space, of heart, and mental state, right? Because remember, there's difference between emotion and feeling, and thought and clarity. It's a big difference.
Right.
So most of us are caught in thought and are caught in emotion, and that's not what feeling and clarity is. And then you will be able to, the state of flow. So it's not, it's.
Oh, hi.
I'm back, yeah.
Okay.
So it's actually very simple, but at the same time, again, remember, things that are simple are easy to do and simple not to do, right? So those are the 4 steps. Again, there's an opportunity here in this space that we're in. At the same time, comes with it challenges.
Sure.
Right? Like I explained.
Okay, so share with us again. You mentioned a few times the family health or well-being or health business that you set up. Please do share a bit more about this.
So basically, the 3 experiences that I had made it very clear that, as I experienced those, I had to go figure, right? I had no support system. I had no structure to help me during those experiences. And not only that, I ended up in some of those situations because I did not have the support as I lived life, right? So I'll take you back. When I was diagnosed, I asked the doctors, what happened? They said, we don't know. And I said, okay, so let's speak to the founder of The Cure. And he said, he doesn't know either. And I said, you're telling me a 35-year-old who doesn't drink, doesn't smoke, never tried drugs because he's too chicken, doesn't drink coffee, doesn't drink tea, is as boring as it gets, ends up with 10 tumors in his body, right? I had a Rubik's Cube in the center of my chest. I had a tennis ball in my neck. I had 8 in my lungs. I have the top internist who actually advises for SARS and that level of doctor as my doc. Okay, I get a screening every year, right? And I ended up with stage 3 cancer.
Yeah.
Right? So it didn't make sense, and they gave me no answer. So that experience, right? And again, so then we looked at my physical state, right? How I ate and drank, how I moved, and how I slept while I was in Hong Kong and while I was traveling.
What's happening? Hello again.
Don't know what's happening.
Yeah.
So there was a big gap between my state of being while I was there, I was not, right? When I was traveling versus in Hong Kong. And so, that was one of the elements. Then the other element they looked at was obviously my thoughts, right? So I was physically present, mentally not, because at any given time, one of those 7 African countries were in a challenging state.
Sure.
Okay. So I was physically there, mentally not, with my family. Then the emotion, it's very lonely at the top. People talk about it, but I got to live it. I didn't have a mentor. I didn't have a coach. So when I was scared, when I wanted to crumble, when I didn't know what to do, I had nobody to turn to. So that whole support system was not there. And then when it came to relationship, right? I'm 3rd generation. Many of the family businesses, members will relate to it. I have a chapter in the book called "Am I Good Enough?" Right? So I was there trying to prove my worth, right? In actuality, it was supposedly external to my father, but in reality, it was internal to myself.
Right.
So I did not have a structure to support myself then. And then when I was ill, I was misdiagnosed because I did not have a structure to help me, right? To understand the errors that are possible when it comes to that space. Right. And then when I was separated and divorced, right? Again, dealing with not only my own emotional state, but also dealing with how do I not judge and blame my former spouse for the decision she made, right? Because think about it. When you are with someone who's 35 and you're 27 and you realize life is short, at the same time when you were 18, you lost your mother of cancer as well, you realize life is short. Am I living in my truth?
Yeah.
And the answer was, I love this man, but I'm not in love with this man. So she opted out, right? But to digest that, it's easy for me to talk about it now, but to digest that took me 3 years. Then the ability to co-parent, right? And raise the two lovely sons that we have, right? With the challenges that come with divorce, right? Having that honor and respect for each other in full transparency. So today she's treated the same way she was when she was married, except that she's no longer my wife. Now, to be able to do that, again, you need support, right? This is not me, myself, and I that's able to do this. So we created a family health office, right? Where we handle, yes, the medical side, which is the first pillar. Then we handle what we call the beyond medical side, which are the day-to-day fundamentals, which again are how do I eat and drink? How do I move? How do I sleep? But again, importantly, my thoughts, my feelings. And the third pillar, which is the family dynamic side, starting with my relationship with myself, my nuclear family, my extended family, and then the community at large, because our focus is families of family businesses and family offices. Now, of course, we also handling senior management of those family businesses and family offices because they come with a lot of the same intricacies.
Right.
Okay. So it was created from my own experience. Then I did this for my own family for 7 years, again, extended. And now we're in year 7 and we serve other families around the world as they experience their journey as family members of family businesses and family offices.
Fantastic.
So it came out of my own personal lack of support and structure. So it's how do I create a support system from birth until it's time to pass in all the realms, because 3 things are guaranteed: death, taxes, and change. And we resist all 3.
Right.
So this is about change. I will change physically, I will change mentally, I will change emotionally, and I will change relationally. Do I have a support system in place that's a phone call away to support me through this journey?
Right. Okay.
Right. And you can imagine now with Corona, this is
essential.
There's a lot
right?
of phone calls.
No, absolutely. Right. So you've been confined to your apartment because you just came in from outside, right? You were traveling.
Yes.
So, as you mentioned, small space. So there's a lot of challenges you're dealing with and so on. And, Hong Kong, you're based in Hong Kong like I am. So we do have a number of people from Europe, the UK and the US as part of this group. And Hong Kong is a few weeks ahead of other countries in the West. So maybe just share just a bit of advice from people out there, who are, just gone into lockdown or are further behind than us. Just some advice, some challenges that you faced during this period, but then also some advice to those folks out there.
Yeah, look, I mean, this is, let's be honest, right? I mean, for those of you who are finished week 1 or week 2, this is not a short game, right? This is going to be approximately, most probably around 8 weeks or more, right? So whatever you plan, whatever you're doing, don't think short, right? So, key elements, of course, maintain routine, right? Very important to maintain routine, which includes the workouts that you used to have, maybe no longer in the gym, but in some form inside the house or outside the house if you're allowed to go outside the house, right? Some countries are an absolute curfew, right? And that is talking about also your spouses and the children, right? This is very important that you maintain routine. The other element is obviously your eating habits, right? Your eating and drinking habits, because we are home, we will have tendencies to munch a lot more than we normally do, right? Or make choices that are not exactly in the best interest, right? So I think that's very important. The other thing is to be mindful of space, right? To create the space, right? For each of us, because we've never spent this much time together historically, right? We may have as a family on holiday, but not in, a continuous space at home, right? So it's really about how do I not bring my stuff to you? How do I not judge? How do I not expect? How do I not impose my ways onto you? right? So it's, you know, I was talking to one of my coaches in Switzerland, and I was explaining to him, and they've confined themselves to a family of 4. And I said, look, you may want to consider expanding that, which is what a lot of people in Hong Kong have done, where they've said, because, you know, it used to take a village to raise a family. Now it's a nuclear family that's raising it. But in reality, it isn't. There's a connectedness of various families that are actually doing it. So I said, you may want to consider maybe 2, 3, 4 families that you trust, that are mindful of not exposing themselves, you know, to this, you know, to other people that could have been in that space, and expanding that space so that the children and the social structure is larger. So extending that family structure, but with mindfulness that everybody is not going to expose themselves, because now you're not affecting the 4 of you, you're affecting 20, 25, 30 people, right? So that's something. And then, of course, staying connected with family, right? Right now we're on Zoom. It's beautiful. I get to see you, you get to see me, and we get to connect, right? So it's how do you stay connected with your loved ones on a consistent basis, right? Especially also with your team, right? So today, if you look at what is the biggest word coming out, I mean, we used well-being 8 years ago, and today it's the hot topic, right? So how do you support your teammates, right? From that space, you know, yes, we're worried about our parents or the elderly, right? In my case, I have them next to me. It's different, right? But the reality is many of us don't, right? So yes, we can talk about lockdown and restrict, but we also have to remember that they need to be able to move, because sedentary lifestyle is going to impact them more, right, than not. So you need to be able to, you know, and then that connectedness, right? So it's how do you know, what is their purpose? If their purpose is the grandkids or their purpose is whatever it is, make sure they stay active in that space. Right. Exactly. So the main is, I mean, this is not a short game, right? So be prepared. I mean, many people may not want to hear what I just said, but remember, we're watching this like a hawk, right? I mean, we're watching country by country. We have families in many, many countries, right? And I think a lot of the people that are in this network are in at least countries where they have a healthcare structure that works. We're dealing with people in Africa, families that we manage, where the healthcare structure doesn't work. We're actually setting up structures for them to manage them having corona in their homes without going outside. That is what we're working on, right? Because they choose to be in these third world countries where if they go out to test, they will be quarantined in a space that is not safe. When I say safe, I mean in all realms, right? So we're helping them create corona, you know, obviously short of using a ventilator. In some cases, we're even helping them create structures in their companies where they have their own unit, all the way to a ventilator, right? So we are very, very grateful. One thing to remember is, another thing is the gratitude, right, of being connected, of the human relationships we had, of the coffee we drank, of the gyms we went to, of, you know, like yourself, you came in, you know, we chatted in the office in the little living room that I have, right? I mean, look at us now, right? We're having the conversation, but it's still not the same, right?
You're right. Exactly. Yeah, that's also important, right? Being grateful for everything, and that's what this virus is showing us, right? I mean, being thankful for the important things in life, your health, your family, and you know. So just.
But really, I think again, one thing. Sorry to interrupt. Is to look at it again, like we say, right? Instead of working in my business, you have an opportunity to work on your business. It's the same thing, right? It's an opportunity to reflect and introspect and say, what I think, is it serving me? What I see, is it serving me? What I speak, is it serving me? What I eat, is it serving me? What I hear, is it serving me? What I feel, is it serving me? What I do, is it serving me? And take a blank piece of paper and really reflect on all of those elements, which is what's happening in the world, right? All the systems are crumbling or being challenged, and there will be a new existence, right? Now, it may sound, you know, ridiculously out there, but that's a reality, right? So the same thing for us. This happened because whatever we were doing, right? Like my cancer, like the divorce, right? It was the ecosystem did not serve. So how was my contribution to that ecosystem from the physical, mental, emotional, relational elements not serving to have created an ecosystem that resulted in cancer within my body, because that's what happened, right? My body attacked itself.
Right, right.
Or the ecosystem of my family where it ended up being challenged, right?
Absolutely.
So you understand? So it's the same thing, right? That we have this opportunity of time, right? And it's a luxury we've never had.
Yes.
We've always been running.
Exactly.
Right?
Fantastic. Well, thank you, Faisal. I mean, I think we took out over an hour, or probably about an hour. So it's almost an hour, but I'll edit it. but thank you. Thanks so much for your time. I really appreciate it, and for your insights, and for your just sharing about who you are, what you do, and your purpose in life. I mean, it's greatly appreciated.
No. Thank you very much for the honor and privilege to serve, and I hope that we have been able to share without, like I said, judgment, imposition, and expectation from the people listening. And I know you like the word to use, inspiring. I just feel that it's of being service, right? I hope we were of service, and the time, which is something we can never give back to them, has been valuable and worthwhile.
Right.
So thank you.
Thank you. Have a wonderful day and stay safe.
Thank you. Thank you.